Daniel had always believed that space would feel grand and exciting, but most days it felt quiet instead. The frontier station called Kestrel 9 floated near a red dwarf star, its metal surface glowing faintly under distant light. Traders, soldiers, scientists, and travelers from dozens of species passed through its corridors, yet Daniel often felt alone among them. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy. Many alien races considered them strange, unpredictable, or simply too emotional. Daniel did not mind too much. He had grown used to curious looks and confused reactions whenever he made jokes. Humor was his way of dealing with stress, and stress came often when repairing broken machines that other engineers refused to touch. He worked in a maintenance bay filled with cables, sparks, and half-repaired drones. The smell of heated metal and old circuitry filled the air. His coworkers respected his skills, even if they did not always understand his personality. Humans had earned a reputation for fixing impossible problems, and Daniel quietly lived up to that expectation. On one particular evening, the station hosted a gathering meant to strengthen relationships between species. Such events were common since humanity joined the Galactic Coalition. Diplomats believed shared meals and conversations would prevent future conflicts. Daniel almost skipped the event. Crowds exhausted him, and he preferred working with machines rather than navigating complicated social rules. But his supervisor insisted that human representatives should attend, even if they were just engineers. The central hall looked beautiful that night. Floating lights drifted overhead like slow-moving stars. Tables held foods designed for different species, from glowing crystals to steaming bowls of unknown substances. Conversations filled the air in many languages. Daniel stood near a drink station, holding a glass of something sweet and blue. He watched as warriors in armor spoke with diplomats wearing elegant robes. Some species were tall and thin, others small and round. He felt both amazed and out of place. A group of traders nearby laughed loudly, sharing stories of their travels. Daniel wished he had someone to talk to. He took a sip from his drink and sighed. "I really need a wife," he muttered under his breath with a small smile. "At least someone who would listen to my bad jokes." To him, it was nothing more than humor. Humans joked about loneliness all the time. He did not expect anyone to take it seriously. But across the hall, someone heard him. Nyxara stood near the shadowed edge of the gathering, her presence calm yet powerful. She belonged to a warrior species often called vampires by humans, though the name was more legend than truth. Her people evolved on a world with little sunlight, their senses sharp and movements precise. They valued honor and clear intention above all else. She had been observing humans since arriving on the station. Something about them fascinated her. They were physically weaker than many species, yet they faced danger without hesitation. They joked during stress, helped strangers without reason, and formed bonds quickly. When Daniel spoke his words, Nyxara interpreted them differently than a human would. Among her people, declaring a desire for partnership in public signaled readiness for a bond. Such statements were never made lightly. She watched him carefully. His posture showed honesty rather than arrogance. His eyes carried both humor and quiet sadness. Without hesitation, she began walking toward him. Daniel noticed her before she reached him. She was taller than most humans, her dark armor reflecting the soft lights above. Her pale skin contrasted with deep red markings along her arms, signs of warrior rank. Conversations around them grew quieter as people noticed her approach. He assumed she wanted directions or technical help. Hello," he said politely. Nyxara studied him for a moment before speaking in a calm voice. "You have declared readiness for a bond." "I accept your declaration." Daniel blinked. "Sorry, what? You spoke of needing a wife," she continued. "I claim you as my chosen partner." The words felt unreal. Daniel stared at her, waiting for a smile or sign of humor, but her expression remained serious. People around them stopped talking entirely. Some watched with curiosity, others with shock. "Oh," Daniel said slowly, "that was a joke." Nyxara tilted her head slightly. "You deny your words?" "No, I mean, yes, I said it, but humans joke like that. It wasn't a real proposal." She remained silent for a moment, clearly processing his explanation. "Your culture uses false statements for emotional comfort." "That's one way to describe it," Daniel admitted. Instead of anger, Nyxara's eyes showed curiosity. "Even if spoken as humor, your words revealed truth. You feel alone." Daniel hesitated. He had not expected honesty from a stranger. Yeah, he admitted quietly. Nyxara nodded once as if confirming something to herself. Then my claim stands. I choose you because you speak honestly even when hiding behind humor. Daniel looked around, hoping someone would interrupt or explain that this was some kind of ritual misunderstanding, but everyone simply watched. This is a lot, he said carefully. I understand, Nyxara replied. You may learn our traditions before accepting fully. My people do not force bonds without consent. Relief washed over him. Okay, learning sounds safer. The tension around them eased slightly, though whispers continued across the hall. News of the interaction spread quickly, drawing attention from diplomats and observers. Daniel suddenly realized he had become the center of a political and cultural moment simply by making a joke. Nyxara gestured toward a quieter area, and he followed, unsure why he trusted her but feeling no threat from her presence. As they walked, he noticed how people moved aside respectfully. She carried authority naturally. I did not mean to cause trouble, she said softly once they reached a less crowded corner. You didn't, Daniel replied. I just didn't expect someone to take me seriously. My people believe words carry power, she explained. Intent shapes reality, Daniel smiled slightly. Humans believe that too. Sometimes we just hide it behind humor. They began talking more comfortably. She asked about Earth, about human relationships, about why humor mattered so much. He asked about her species, learning that their bonds were built on equality and shared purpose rather than ownership. The more they spoke, the more he realized she had chosen him not out of misunderstanding alone but genuine interest. Later that evening, a loud alarm suddenly echoed through the station. Red lights flashed along the walls, signaling danger. The gathering quickly turned into controlled chaos as people moved toward exits. Daniel's instincts as an engineer activated immediately. Something's wrong with the power grid, he said, noticing flickering lights. Nyxara watched him closely as he rushed toward a nearby access panel. Without hesitation, he began opening it, scanning wires and circuits. Can you fix it? She asked. I'll try. Sparks flew as he bypassed damaged systems. The station's gravity fluctuated briefly, causing objects to float before settling again. He worked quickly, ignoring the risk. Nyxara stood guard beside him, her posture ready for combat, though no visible enemy appeared. After several tense moments, the lights stabilized. The alarm faded into silence. Daniel leaned back with a tired smile. There, temporary fix. People nearby looked at him with gratitude and surprise. Even those who doubted humans now watched him differently. Nyxara observed him with new understanding. You risked yourself without hesitation. It needed fixing, he said simply. She nodded slowly, clearly impressed. As security teams arrived and the situation returned to normal, Daniel realized that the evening had changed more than he expected. What began as a joke had turned into a connection that might reshape his future. He glanced at Nyxara, who stood beside him calmly, as if she had already decided something important. For the first time since arriving on the station, he did not feel entirely alone. And somewhere deep inside, he wondered if maybe the galaxy had heard his joke and answered it in a way he never imagined. Daniel did not sleep well after the gathering. His small cabin felt tighter than usual, like the walls had moved closer in the night. The station's gentle hum, normally comforting, sounded like a warning. He kept replaying the moment in the hall, the silence, the eyes on him, and Nyxara's calm voice saying she claimed him as her chosen partner. He had not expected his life to change because of one careless joke. When morning lights brightened to mimic a sunrise, Daniel washed his face, took a deep breath, and left his cabin. The corridor outside was already busy. Service drones drifted past, and workers in different uniforms moved with purpose. Every now and then, Daniel noticed someone glance at him a second too long. Word had spread. He tried to ignore it and headed toward the maintenance sector, but a security officer stepped into his path. The officer was a tall reptilian species with a smooth helmet and a badge that flashed in station light. Daniel of Earth, the officer said in a flat voice. You are requested in diplomatic oversight. Daniel's stomach tightened. Requested by who? By the station's liaison council, the officer replied. Follow. Daniel wanted to protest, but he knew resisting would only make things worse. He walked with the officer through the station's wider corridors, passing windows that showed stars drifting slowly like cold fire. Diplomatic oversight was a polished area compared to the maintenance bays. The walls were clean, the lights soft, and the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and expensive materials. Daniel felt like a man in dusty boots stepping into a royal hall. Inside the chamber, several representatives sat around a curved table. Some wore robes, some armor, some had skin that shimmered like glass. A holographic symbol of the Galactic Coalition floated above them, shifting colors. Nyxara stood near the far side of the room. She was not seated. Her posture was straight, calm, and she looked completely unbothered by the tension in the air. Daniel's heart jumped with both relief and worry. At least he was not alone. A small alien with 4 eyes leaned forward. Daniel of Earth, you made a public declaration of partnership. A warrior of House Vaer accepted and claimed you. This has created diplomatic concern. Daniel swallowed. I didn't mean to cause problems. It was a joke. Nyxara's gaze shifted to the council. He has explained that his people use humor to soften truth. I have accepted the spirit behind the words, not the careless shape of them. Another council member, a tall insect-like diplomat, tapped a claw on the table. House Vaer's bond claims are respected across many sectors. If this bond is formed, it creates automatic alliance privileges. Some factions will argue humanity is gaining influence unfairly. Daniel's eyes widened. I didn't know it was that serious. Nyxara spoke again, steady as stone. If there is conflict, it is not because of him. It is because others fear change. Daniel felt the weight of the room. These were not people arguing about romance. They were arguing about power. The 4-eyed diplomat raised a hand. No one denies House Vaer's tradition. However, we must ensure consent and understanding. Daniel, do you feel threatened or forced? Daniel glanced at Nyxara. Her expression was calm, and she had already said she would not force him. He could not honestly claim fear. No, he said. I'm confused but not threatened. Nyxara nodded slightly, as if she appreciated his honesty. Then the council proposes a formal evaluation period, the insect diplomat said. During this time, you will learn each other's customs. Any bond decision will be delayed until both parties confirm with full awareness. Daniel exhaled. That sounded fair. Okay, Nyxara's voice lowered. Agreed. The council signaled approval. In addition, the 4-eyed diplomat continued, you will remain under public observation, not as prisoners but as persons of interest. The station must remain stable. Daniel wanted to argue, but he knew it was pointless. Being watched was the price of being involved in something bigger. As the meeting ended, Nyxara stepped closer. You handled that well? Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't even know there was a handling. I thought I was just trying not to faint. Her lips almost moved into something like a smile. Humor again? It's my survival tool, he admitted. Nyxara studied him as if he were a puzzle she wanted to understand. Then I will learn it. They walked together out of diplomatic oversight. Daniel expected people to follow or whisper, and they did. But Nyxara moved with such quiet authority that the crowd kept distance. She led him to an area Daniel had never visited before, a sealed section near the station's older levels. The doors opened with a coded signal from her wrist device. Inside was a training chamber. The room was wide, with padded floors, climbing structures, and holographic projectors. Weapons racks lined one wall, but the weapons were secured behind energy locks. On the far side stood medical equipment and nutrient dispensers designed for multiple species. Daniel stared. You have your own gym? Training is part of my life, Nyxara replied. I requested a private chamber when assigned here. Daniel stepped inside carefully. So what happens now? You teach me vampire warrior stuff? Nyxara tilted her head. My people are not vampires. Humans named us that because of legends. We are the Vaer. Right, Daniel said quickly. Sorry, old habit. She walked toward a projector and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing symbols and shapes like a living language. This is the Bond Code, she said. It is older than many star empires. It exists to prevent cruelty and misunderstanding. Daniel frowned. Bond Code? Nyxara faced him. Among my people, a bond is a promise between equals. It is not ownership. It is not control. It is a shared shield. The code protects both partners. Daniel listened closely, surprised. He had expected something harsh and possessive based on the way her words sounded in the hall. But her explanation felt different. Nyxara continued. A warrior may claim a partner only if she offers protection, respect, and freedom. The claimed may refuse. The claimed may also set conditions. If the warrior violates the bond code, her house loses honor and standing. Daniel blinked. So you can't boss me around. Nyxara's eyes sharpened slightly. I do not desire to boss you around. Daniel raised both hands. Good, because I'm not exactly house-trained. Nyxara paused. House-trained? He realized how that sounded. It's a human joke, like training an animal to behave. Nyxara's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in confusion. You compare yourself to an animal, Daniel groaned. No, forget it. This is going to be a long cultural exchange. Nyxara's mouth curved just slightly. It was quick, but it was real. Yes, she said softly, it will. Daniel felt warmth spread in his chest. He had just made an alien warrior almost smile. That felt like an achievement. Nyxara began basic training with him, not combat, but balance and movement. She explained that her species used controlled breathing and steady posture to calm the mind before danger. Daniel tried to copy her, but he kept wobbling, which made her silently shake her head in disappointment. He fell onto the padded floor after losing balance again. Okay, your people definitely evolved differently. Nyxara extended a hand and pulled him up easily. Your body is not weak, your patterns are unfamiliar. Daniel brushed dust from his pants. That's a nice way of saying I move like a tired cow. Nyxara blinked. Cows are tired. Daniel laughed. Never mind. They trained for nearly an hour. Daniel was sweating, and Nyxara looked like she had not even warmed up. Still, she did not mock him. She corrected his posture with gentle touches, careful to avoid making him uncomfortable. When they stopped, Nyxara gave him a nutrient drink designed for humans. She had clearly researched him already. Daniel took it, surprised. You planned this. I plan many things, she said. Survival requires it. Daniel sat on a bench, catching his breath. So why me, really? You could have claimed someone else, someone stronger, more important. Nyxara stood still, considering. I watched you before I approached. You repair broken things others abandon. You speak kindly even when ignored. You joked about loneliness, but you did not demand anyone fix it for you. You endure. Daniel's throat tightened slightly. He looked away. That's a lot to notice. I notice what matters, she said. Daniel took a slow sip from the drink, feeling something shift inside him. He had spent so long feeling invisible, yet this warrior had seen him clearly. Their moment was interrupted by the station's broadcast system. A calm voice echoed through the chamber. Attention, all personnel. Unidentified ships have been detected entering the station's restricted zone. Security teams are mobilizing. Daniel's engineer instincts snapped awake. Unidentified ships, that's not normal. Nyxara's eyes hardened. No, it is not. They left the training chamber quickly. Corridors filled with movement. Security drones zipped through the air. Crew members rushed toward their assigned stations. Daniel ran toward the maintenance sector. If ships were entering restricted space, the station might need emergency power, shields, or repairs. Daniel could not stand still while others handled it. Nyxara stayed beside him, matching his pace without effort. As they reached the maintenance bay, Daniel's supervisor was already shouting orders. We have shield fluctuations. Get the backup grid online. Daniel ran to his station and pulled up the system interface. The screen flashed warning symbols. The station's energy flow was unstable. Someone or something was interfering. He typed commands quickly, rerouting power to stabilize shields. His hands moved fast, but his mind moved faster. Nyxara stood behind him like a silent guardian, watching the bay entrance and the workers. She looked like she belonged in a battlefield, not a workshop, yet her presence calmed Daniel. A young technician hurried over. Daniel, the outer dock sensors are down. Something hit the relay. Daniel cursed under his breath. Of course it did. He grabbed a tool kit. I'll fix it. His supervisor grabbed his arm. No, that area is exposed. Wait for security. Daniel pulled free. If the sensors are down, security is blind. Waiting makes it worse. Nyxara stepped forward. I will go with him. The supervisor hesitated, looking at Nyxara's armor and rank markings. Fine, he said finally, but be careful. Daniel and Nyxara moved through side corridors toward the outer relay section. Emergency lights cast red shadows along metal walls. The sound of distant alarms pulsed like a heartbeat. As they approached the relay hatch, Daniel heard impact vibrations. Something was happening outside. He opened the hatch and peered into the narrow maintenance tunnel. It led to an exterior access point where a relay panel connected to station sensors. "I can reach it," Daniel said, "but it'll take a minute." Nyxara nodded. "I will watch." Daniel climbed into the tunnel, crawling forward with his tool kit. The space was tight and cold. His breath echoed inside his helmet. He reached the relay panel and saw the damage immediately. The circuit housing was cracked, likely from debris impact or sabotage. He began working quickly, replacing broken connectors and sealing cracks with repair foam. His fingers moved with practiced skill. Machines were honest. They broke for clear reasons. They could be fixed. A sudden shake ran through the station, stronger than before. Daniel's head bumped the metal ceiling. "Ow!" Nyxara's voice came through his comm. "Daniel, do you hear that?" He paused, listening. Through the tunnel walls, he heard faint scratching sounds. "Yeah," he whispered. "What is that?" Nyxara's voice grew tense. "Something is inside the station." Daniel's blood went cold. "Like an intruder?" "Yes." He finished the relay repairs faster than he ever had before and sealed the panel. "I'm coming back." As he crawled toward the hatch, the scratching grew louder. Then a metallic bang echoed nearby, followed by a sharp hiss. Nyxara's voice snapped. "Move!" Daniel pushed himself forward. He burst from the hatch and rolled onto the corridor floor, breathing hard. Nyxara stood in front of him, her weapon drawn, an energy blade glowing dark red. Her stance was protective, balanced, ready. At the far end of the corridor, something moved. A small creature, low to the ground with armored plates and too many legs, crawled along the wall. Its eyes glowed faintly. It looked like a parasite drone, the kind pirates used to sabotage systems. Daniel's voice shook slightly. "That's not a normal animal." "It is a tool," Nyxara said. "A hunting drone." The creature lunged forward suddenly. Nyxara moved like a shadow. She did not swing wildly. She stepped aside, caught the creature's movement, and struck with precise force. The energy blade flashed and the drone fell in pieces. Daniel stared, stunned. "Okay, that was impressive." Nyxara turned toward him. "Are you harmed?" "No," Daniel said quickly, "just scared." Nyxara's eyes softened slightly. "Fear is natural, but you did not freeze." Daniel swallowed. "I wanted to, but I didn't." Nyxara nodded. "That is why you endure." They reported the drone to security, and soon the corridor filled with armed guards. Daniel and Nyxara were escorted back to the central systems room. There, they learned the truth. The unidentified ships were pirate craft, hidden behind false signals. They had launched sabotage drones into the station to weaken defenses before attempting to steal supplies and technology. The station was not prepared for a full fight. Many defenses were old. The Coalition had not invested heavily here, since Kestrel 9 was considered a minor frontier outpost. But Daniel saw something else. He saw a pattern. If pirates thought the station was weak, they would underestimate the people inside it. And humans had made a habit of turning underestimation into surprise. Daniel stepped up to the security chief, a broad-shouldered alien with scarred skin. "If the pirates are using drones, they might also be trying to hack our power systems. I can create a false signal loop, make them think they've shut down our shields when they haven't." The security chief frowned. "Can you do that quickly?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, if I can access the external transmission port." Nyxara stepped forward. "I will escort him." The security chief hesitated, then nodded. "Do it!" Daniel's heart raced. He was not a soldier, but he had something valuable: his mind, his hands, his creativity. He ran with Nyxara toward the transmission port, weaving through corridors as alarms continued. Along the way, Daniel saw frightened civilians huddled in safe rooms. He saw children of different species clinging to parents. He saw fear everywhere. A strange anger rose in him, not violent anger, but protective anger. This station was home for many people, even if it was temporary. Pirates had no right to turn it into terror. They reached the transmission port room, where a large console controlled external signal flow. The room was mostly empty, abandoned by staff who had moved to safe areas. Daniel sat at the console and began working fast. He created a false data stream, mimicking shield collapse signals. He encrypted it with outdated Coalition codes pirates often expected. Then he rerouted the real shield controls through a hidden backup path. Nyxara watched quietly, her weapon lowered but ready. Daniel finished and hit the final command. "Done." He exhaled hard, his hands shaking. Nyxara leaned closer. "What will happen now?" Daniel swallowed. "If it works, the pirates will think the station shields are down." They'll come closer, too close. Nyxara's eyes narrowed. A trap. Yeah, Daniel said. A human trap. A loud boom shook the station again. This time the impact felt like a ship striking the outer shield. Daniel checked the console. They're testing. They're taking the bait. Nyxara's voice was low. Then the station must strike when they are vulnerable. Daniel nodded. We can overload the shield pulse when they get close. It'll push them back, maybe disable their systems for a moment. Nyxara looked at him, and in her eyes Daniel saw something new. Not just curiosity, respect. You do not fight with blades, she said. You fight with systems. Daniel forced a small smile. Everyone fights with what they have. They waited, watching numbers on the console. Pirate craft moved closer and closer, thinking the station was defenseless. When the ships reached the right distance, Daniel triggered the shield pulse. A bright flash lit the console's screen. The station vibrated, then steadied. Outside, through the port window, Daniel saw pirate ships thrown back by the sudden energy surge. One ship spun out of control, its engines flickering. Cheers echoed through station channels. Security teams moved to lock onto the pirates while they were stunned. Daniel sagged back in his chair, exhausted but relieved. Nyxara placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. You saved many lives. Daniel looked up at her, surprised by how much her words mattered. I just did my job. Nyxara shook her head. No, you did more. You chose to protect when you could have hidden. Daniel thought of his joke from the night before. He had joked about needing someone, about being alone. But today, he had been part of something larger than himself. He had stood beside someone powerful, someone who chose to protect him, and he had protected others in return. As the pirate threat began to fade and the station regained control, Nyxara spoke quietly. In my culture, a bond is proven through action. Today, you acted. Daniel's throat tightened again. What does that mean? It means the council will watch you even more closely, she said with a hint of dry humor that sounded almost like she was trying to copy him. And it means my choice will be questioned less. Daniel chuckled softly despite the tension. So I accidentally impressed the scary vampire warrior, Nyxara blinked. Vayer. Right, Vayer, Daniel corrected quickly. Sorry, Nyxara's lips curved again, slightly longer this time. You are learning. Daniel's heart felt lighter than it had in months. Later, after the station secured the area and pirate ships retreated, Daniel and Nyxara walked through a quieter corridor. Emergency lights were being replaced by normal lighting. The station crew moved with tired relief. Daniel noticed a small group of civilians watching them, whispering. But this time it felt different, not gossip, more like hope. Nyxara spoke as they walked. Some will still fear this bond, Daniel nodded. I get it. Humans are new, your house is powerful. People will assume there's some trick, Nyxara's voice softened. I do not use tricks in matters of honor. Daniel looked at her. I believe you. Nyxara stopped walking. Daniel stopped too, unsure why. She faced him fully. Her eyes were intense but not cold. Daniel, understand this. I did not claim you to control you. I claimed you because I saw worth. If you refuse later, I will accept it. But I will not pretend my choice was an accident. Daniel swallowed hard. I don't know what I'll decide yet. Nyxara nodded once. That is honest. I will wait. They continued walking. In the distance, the stars outside the station window looked calmer now, like the galaxy had paused to breathe. Daniel realized something important. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he belonged in the wider universe. Not because humans were special, but because he had proven something. Humans could be underestimated, mocked, doubted, or feared. But when it mattered, humans could turn fear into solutions. And that was the kind of strength that could change the galaxy. Nyxara glanced at him as they walked. Tell me another joke. Daniel looked at her, surprised. Right now? Yes, she said simply. I wish to understand. Daniel thought quickly, then said, Okay, why did the space mechanic break up with the robot? Nyxara waited. Why? Daniel smiled. Because it kept giving him mixed signals. Nyxara stared for a moment. Then slowly she released a sound that was not quite a laugh, but close. Mixed signals, she repeated thoughtfully. That is relevant. Daniel grinned. See, humor is educational. Nyxara's eyes softened. Perhaps, or perhaps it is your way of surviving emotions. Daniel shrugged. Also true. They reached the entrance to the maintenance bay again. Daniel paused, looking at the busy workers, the repaired systems, the calm returning. He realized that part 2 of his life had begun. Not just the Bond story, but the larger story. Humans in the galaxy. The station had survived because a human engineer refused to hide, and because a warrior who lived in shadows chose to stand beside him. As Daniel stepped back into the bay, he knew one thing for sure. His joke had started something, but his actions would decide what it became.